Welcome to RPA Family Gaming, where we talk about how to survive in the world's greatest adventure. And today we're on location at Game Grid in Lehi, Utah. And our host at the store today is Jordan Bird, the owner of Game Grid. So thank you for having us here, Jordan.
No, for sure. Thank you for coming in. I'm super excited to be part of it.
Yeah, thanks. This is we're excited. You were one of the first people I thought of when I thought about doing interviews. So we're thrilled that you were willing to meet with us. So
awesome. So make it work, masks and all.
Yeah. Hopefully the audience can hear us with masks on. I'm not sure quite what this will do to our sound quality. So my apologies if it's a little weird, but till we're out of this mess, we got to deal with it.
Better safe than sorry. Yeah.
So, well, I wanted to start by getting to know you a little bit, or helping our audience get to know you a little bit. So I don't even know where you're from, actually. Are you a local? Are you?
Yeah. So born in Orem.
Okay.
Moved to Lehigh when I was 5, and virtually never left. Like I lived in Saratoga for a while, and then actually just a month ago I moved to Riverton. So.
Well, one of the things that I think has been really cool about this store, as I've gotten to know your store, is like the strong sense of community. I think there's a lot of loyalty among the gaming crowd in Lehi, and I was startled to find that Lehi has like one of the more significant gaming crowds in the area. Like, I think in a lot of ways, I don't know, maybe not bigger than Salt Lake, but certainly like higher percentage of per capita, involvement. There's just a lot of people out here who game. It was startling. I expected Salt Lake to have more gamers when I got back into the scene, and it's not really the case. So, yeah. I mean, maybe kind of, but there are a lot of gamers in Utah County in general, and and especially in Lehi. So it's been kind of cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. The whole Silicon Slopes really changed the demographics around Lehi, right? Like when I was growing up, some of the kids I grew up with lived on a mink farm, and right, like just all sorts of ATVs, and I own horses, and I raise chickens, right? And like that was just the people that I went to scouts with and went to school with. And then in the last 5 years, with Silicon Slopes blowing up and Adobe coming in and Domo showing up, not only do you have this influx of technically oriented people, but the Silicon Slopes companies tend to model themselves after Silicon Valley, which means that there's a board game club that's sponsored by corporate and gives you a budget to buy board games with and says, go play board games during lunch.
That's very cool.
Right?
I've wanted to start something like that at my work, and I always feel really awkward, like advertising, hey, we want to play board games at lunch. There's a few people interested, but I don't work in a nerdy enough place, obviously.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see, because like we also have a friend who's in the medical profession, and she uses board games as like her team building exercise, so she'll grab like the Unlock or other escape games, right?
There's so many ways that games can be used, for education and team building, and it's super cool.
Yeah.
So
it's a unique interactive position compared to normal activities or day-to-day life. So.
Well, and so many of the things that happen like that really are kind of games anyway. You just don't call them that. So anyway. So I'm curious to know, like, what kinds of interests do you have outside of gaming, or is gaming like an obsessive focus for you? Or
I mean, I think maybe it'll surprise people, especially with how the shop is now. But I started out as just a Magic player, and I had played Catan and Ticket to Ride and Dominion, right?
Okay.
Because it was a deck builder, close enough to the card game, right? But yeah, we opened up with a really strong emphasis on Magic the Gathering all the time. And over the years, like my wife doesn't play Magic, and it's somewhat time consuming to keep up with. And
there's
so
always something new coming out.
Right, yeah. So I got more and more into board games, just because it was easier to interact with more people. And then one of the other game grids up in Layton, actually, their manager introduced me to a game called Scythe. And I was like, oh my gosh, games have changed. And I was like just so surprised to have something with so much depth and complexity and turns that take a minute or two, right? And you're not sitting there like back in the day playing Risk, and you're like, hey, you're going? Okay, I'm gonna go get some nachos. Does anybody need a drink? I'll be back in half an hour when it's my turn again.
Yeah, the first time we played Axis and Allies with my buddies in high school, I think it took us 8.5 hours to get through it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Things have become more
Weekend
efficient.
long games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
better designed, a little
Right.
more elegant. Not that they still like Axis and Allies, but it still takes a long time to play.
Well, it feels
3 or
like
4.
there's so much more to explore when you're starting to mesh these heavier strategy, or I guess heavier Euro style games into these long-term scope, large scope strategy games, right? Like those mechanics that didn't exist beyond rolling dice and playing cards have really changed the field. And
Yeah. So you said you got in playing Magic was kind of your gateway. What's your current favorite game? Do you have one that's kind of what you would if you were to pick a game just to play for fun what you would play right now?
Well, I think the game that I would play for fun and the game that is my absolute favorite are two different answers.
Oh, okay.
Right, because the game that is my absolute favorite, I would probably not pick for fun. But if the situation came up and I had the right people and the right amount of time, I'm always down for a game of Sidereal Confluence, trading and negotiation in the Elysian sector, or is it Elysian Quadrant? Anyway, but it's this chaotic, massive free-for-all of trading. And so you are all different alien races, and the galaxy is at peace, and the only way to really get prestige for your race is to invent new technology. But because we're all peaceful and cooperative, whoever invents the new technology, each other race gets a copy of that. And what the tech does is it turns gold bits into brown bits or green bits or black bits or silver bits, right? And there's like 12 different resources that you're using in the game. And every round of play starts off with this 15-minute free-for-all. You can trade anything to anybody for anything, and you just start talking, right? And so it's just this huge negotiation of, hey, to get my engine going so I can start converting, I really need a silver bit, but none of my planets produce silver bits, so can you trade me a silver bit for this gold bit? It looks like you need a gold bit, right? And you just go back and forth, and then, so it's all real time, right? And then you go into the next phase, and you just run your engine. So you're turning cards sideways, swapping bits with the bank, turning more cards sideways, swapping bits with the bank, and hopefully you get to a point where you can afford to build the new technology, which then everyone will get a copy of anyway. So everyone's on a pretty level playing field, but there's no downtime, right? 100% real time, and it lends itself to a lot of really interesting player interactions. So,
Cool.
But you do need, I'd say, minimum 6 people, up to 9, minimum 6. And 3 to 4 hours, and it's definitely one of those games where everybody should probably read the rulebook themselves, because you'll miss something when you explain it, right?
Then it's not a level playing field.
Yeah. But yeah, if we're throwing down for fun, I would have to say that my go-to is still Magic.
Yeah.
Right, it's just that like timeless, whether you're drafting or playing Commander or doing sealed or a pre-release or just grabbing a deck out of your backpack, right? The fact that there's this one game where everybody who plays knows 99% of the rules, but there's infinite unique pieces and combinations of pieces, I really enjoy that aspect of it a lot. So.
Yeah, there are reasons why it's such a popular game and so lasting. That was one, because I took 15, 20 years off from serious gaming, but I played Magic when I was really young, like 11, 12, and enjoyed it. And then I came back as an adult and was like, wow, it's just grown and exploded. Like I think. I don't know. I get why it's so popular. It's not one I have the time or the means to to get in myself. Although we dabble in it at our house a little bit, but we've never been serious. One of the things that I thought was cool about your store, though, was like, because it's got this the game of Magic has this legacy. It's sometimes unapproachable for new people, right? It's a little intimidating, and you were, I forget what you call it, the entry level tournament that you were
doing. The Junior Super Series.
It seems like you've done a lot to reach it. Well, and then there was one you did where everybody had to have basic cards, right? Like nothing fancy, and I think that's cool for beginners to get people in the door, because it is a cool game, but it's overwhelming. Like to go into a game store and have some guy pull out a $200 deck and clean your clock. It's like,
Right.
well, that kind of sucked.
Yeah. There's definitely what is it? My favorite thing is that Magic's not pay to win, but it definitely can be pay to play, because you're not necessarily on an even playing field out of the box sometimes.
Yeah, well, some of the drafts are fun, I guess, too. That counters everybody. It's let's see what you got, and then what can you do with what you just got totally randomly. Yeah, it's fun game. So
yeah, and it's there's also Magic Arena that just came out for the last year. I guess it's still sort of in beta, but it's 100% replica of the card game digitally. So kind of like a Hearthstone or Runeterra type game, but completely free to play. And we don't tell people we won't teach them Magic, but we do say, hey, if you really want to learn the rules, go through the Arena tutorial, because it won't miss something, right? Like, it's always going to go step by step, introduce the concepts in a logical order. You can take 15 minutes to think through your turn. You can click on cards for reminder text, right? And
there's a lot of logic and rational calculating in that game.
Yeah.
So it's very much you got to think things through. How does this affect that? How do these things combine? It's very technical.
Yeah. So having a computer tutorial is not the worst, but then come back and we'll sit down and play a game with you and clean up what's different in paper if there is anything. So.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what prompted you to start a store? It's got to be a busy, time-consuming job. Why this and not something else?
So I was 22, living in my parents' basement and working in a call center and playing Magic at, unfortunately they're closed, but at a store called Epic up in West Valley. And they, I was like, hey, how did you guys get started, right? Same kind of basic questions I think almost every player asks their favorite shopkeep at some point. And they said, we want to do a Utah County location. Would you be interested? And I was like, well, what's the worst that could happen? I'm already living in my parents' basement. I'm already working a job I hate, so I can go bankrupt and still be in the same situation. So I rolled the dice on it, and we literally, that conversation was end of October, and we opened in December, so 4 weeks of all of November prep time.
Wow.
And we built our own shelves, repainted it all ourselves, had no money, right? So all sweat equity, and threw up a bunch of games on the shelves and opened. And I got incredibly lucky because that was 9 years ago, and I think Lehigh has almost doubled in population since then.
It's fastest growing city last time I checked, or second fastest.
Yeah.
Flip flops with South Jordan, which is not very far away.
Right, and we got a lot of points for being the first to move. There's 3 game stores in Lehigh now, but at the time there was a reason I was driving to West Valley. There were other game stores in Utah County, but nothing that quite provided that environment that I was looking for. And so we, as Lehigh grew, we just happened to grow with it.
That's actually really cool.
Yeah. So lots of hard work, but also really fortunate timing, and some people that gave me a huge leg up being the partner of an existing game store and avoiding a lot of pitfalls. So.
Well, that's way cool.
Yeah.
So one of the things that our channel is all about is gaming with kids, gaming with teens, gaming, multi-generational gaming with families. And one of the things that's attracted me to your store is that I see a diversity of ages here. So I'm curious to know what kinds of things, is that something that you try to do by design? Or what kinds of things do you think you do that help promote that environment?
Yeah. So I mean, it is really important, huge priority to me, because I actually was a high school debate coach for 4 of the years that I was running our store, and that was really, really challenging, just because both of them are the kind of thing that requires a lot of off-the-clock commitment, right? It's like I don't have to be at the store right now. I have an employee there, but I do still have to find time to place the order and think about next month's marketing and everything else, right? And I only have to be at the school for these hours to teach these kids how to debate, and I only have to go to these tournaments once a month. But if I'm going to be up to date on the topic and on the cases and current events and able to teach them, then that's a whole nother 20, 40 hours a week of research. But yeah, I really, really love that. And so when I unfortunately had to make a decision like, okay, I can't survive off of part-time coaching, and I can't survive off of a game store that's more of like my hobby and second job. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to go full-time game store. And it's been great, really love it, but I wanted to make sure that I kept that like interaction with the younger community, because I love the enthusiasm and passion that you get from kids in high school, right? Like when they get into something, they're in.
Well, and I think the second event that I learned about with your store when I was kind of first getting to know it was a high school sponsored game event. So did that grow out of your coaching then, or?
Yeah. So that ended up coming about. It was one of our big ways to re-interact with that same community, right? Like some of the kids who I had been coaching became players at the store. Mm-hmm. And so I still had like constant contact with them even after I went full-time game store. And we were just like brainstorming, like how do we get more involvement and what would be best for the kids. And we came up with what we call Alpine Gaming Con. Uh-huh. And we now do it, well, hypothetically, non-COVID, we do it once a semester. And, we get 200, 300 people over the course of a single day. But the big push is all the high school game clubs that we're in contact with. So right now that's Lehigh, Westlake, Skyridge, and Pleasant Grove. Mm-hmm. Get their students to volunteer to teach games for set chunks of time. And then we put up a schedule, they invite their friends and family, we invite our customers, but it puts kids in a really unique position of sharing something that they love with their peers, but also with adults. Being in a position where they have to be the educator. Hey, this is how you play this game. Or they have to create an immersive world, right? We do D&D tables still. Mm-hmm. And then it also gives them, at the same time, right, once their 2-hour volunteer chunk is done, they hop over and start playing games at other tables, meet kids from other schools, and like, it's really, I don't know, it's just like this really exciting, busy, chaotic day, but I don't know that anybody's ever had a bad time, right? Like it's, my favorite example is we had this one kid doing D&D, and he was the DM, and he was signed up for his 2-hour block, and 100% into it. Like must have been like president of the drama club as well, doing different voices, jumping out of his chair.
I totally wish I'd done drama in high school now that I've gotten more into role playing games.
Yeah.
Like wow, I'm bad at this.
Ridiculously talented, yeah. And not to do any like stereotypes or anything, but you have this family come in, and it looks like they were planning on going and hitting the ski slopes afterwards, right? Uh-huh. Like just this like very stereotypical like prep and jock family who had been roped into it. Maybe one of their kids enjoys games or whatever, and so they're like, well, whatever, we'll try this whole Dungeons and Dragons thing. So we've seen it on Big Bang Theory, right? Uh-huh. And this is all me just like prejudging them. And they ended up playing for 6 hours straight.
Holy
like
cow.
This kid went for 4 more hours past his time and just had this insanely great time. And I was like, oh, there's not really jocks and preps. Gaming is really universal in this generation. And it was really cool to see them get fully immersed into this experience that maybe they never would have had without this one awesome DM and this kind of cool convention.
I think that's fantastic. I remember listening to Mike Merles in an interview talk about how this younger generation has gotten so involved in it, and it's, I think, all of the online game and computer gaming kind of opened the door, but then role-playing games and board games reintroduce the social aspect and interacting with people, that interpersonal part of it that I don't know, for me is kind of key. Like I've been invited to a bunch of games on Zoom and other platforms, and I turn them all down. Like I do have one campaign we've been playing on Zoom with some of my buddies, and I'll be honest, I kind of hate it. like it's nice to see you guys, but not as nice as it was 2 months before when we were doing this in our basement. Anyway, yeah, it's I love the interpersonal relationship aspect of it. And it's cool that the kids are running the games. That's something that we think is hugely important, is to get the kids behind the game screen or running these games. So
it's a totally different mentality to be in that leadership position. But yeah, I've got kind of a similar background where when Halo first came out, I was in high school, so perfect timing. and LAN parties were my jam, right? Go over to, my grandma lived right above the high school, and so we would all pile in 4 Xboxes, infinite cables running throughout our whole house, order a bunch of pizza, and just play Halo. And then, was it Halo 3 that introduced Xbox Live and playing online, and everyone's in their own basement? And I dropped out of video games so fast, right? Because like it was about being in the same room as the people, and I can't believe you just headshotted me. Whack him on the arm, right? Like you gotta have a little bit of violence. No, but yeah, the camaraderie of face-to-face interaction is 100% different than online. And
yeah, it's kind of the great irony. I find that I'm now trying to do some YouTube stuff because that's exactly what I love about board games and role-playing games is that human interaction, and now I'm trying to do that more digitally.
Right.
Even though but at the same time, I found that like for me personally, I was able to get back into gaming in large part because of what's available on YouTube and some of these other places. So I think they both have a place, and there's I think in our modern era, it's just a natural synergy. It's kind of how we live now. So
no, you need to have.
Yeah. So tell me, do you have a favorite experience gaming with a kid, like personally, or gaming with a teen, or maybe in a family setting? What is there?
I mean, I've had a lot of good times gaming, but in terms of gaming with a kid, it's going to roll back into Magic the Gathering, of course. But they would.
That's your jam,
right? Yeah. Some of the kids would hang out when I was teaching.
I've been schooled by kids a third my age at those games.
And I was just
younger, probably.
yeah. No, like there's a 6-year-old. Maybe she's 7 now, but she, her and her dad before COVID traveled to all the big like cash prize Magic events, and she would consistently take the top 100 out of 2,000 people, top 30. I think she ended up in the top 8 one time before the whole COVID shutdown happened. But yeah, kind of crazy that there's just some very skilled players out there regardless of age.
It's crazy, yeah. Like half the kids aren't barely reading at that age, and some people get
she's over here taking down entire events and getting paid. But the kids at the high school begged me to bring decks, and I just built the most powerful thing I could out of stuff in the store and womp them at lunch. And then
that's super cool.
Right? And then I got really busy when I did full-time game store, and one of the kids has just been like, hey, I've really worked on my deck, I've improved it, we should play. And maybe like 6-9 months go by, and he's like, hey, this is my senior year, we should really play because I'm going to college out of state. And so I rebuilt my super powerful awesome deck, getting ready, just okay, fine, we'll crush it, Mason. And I sit down and the dude, he just walks all over the floor with me. I was like, oh my gosh, you weren't kidding. Like I just did not have the right tool set to beat him. So
there's definitely some, that's fantastic. I think it's cool that you've kept in touch with a lot of these guys and done what you do. I think this is, like I said, I'm a great admirer of your store and what you guys do here. I think it's this is the kind of community that I think we need more of, frankly. So I think that's way exciting. So. Well, we probably ought to wrap this up, but we had a small thank you gift, and it will probably get lost in the hordes and hordes of scenery that you have that's way higher quality. But we're fans of making our own scenery at home. So I stole your logo from online.
Yeah.
And I threw it on these Ebel's miniature crates. They're paper craft, and then threw it on a piece of VCT tile. So the next time you're playing a shoot 'em up, you can duck behind crates of board games and have them get shot instead of you. So.
That is really cool.
So we just wanted to say thanks, and we really appreciate you, taking the time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us.
But yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I'm glad I could do it. Glad you guys asked, and that's some really awesome terrain. I will endeavor to make sure it does not get lost. Although I will probably let other people use it. Just because it's sweet, needs to be used, right?
Yeah, we sprayed it. We tried to seal it, so we put some sealer spray on there.
So these are paper?
They're paper. They have cardstock.
They hold up really well.
And awesome. A lot of glue and some spray. So.
Yeah. Well, that's really awesome. One last thing I did want to do a shout out, although we bagged pretty hard on digital gaming, but
it's not all bad. There's a place for it.
Right, yeah. I was going to say, with COVID going on, we had to cancel our last Alpine Gaming Con to the disappointment of many, and we're going to try to relaunch on Halloween with an all-digital edition. So we're going to, out in our store, we actually have 8 webcam setups that we use for mostly Magic the Gathering events. We're going to set them all up on individual tables and then have those volunteer game masters come in
Mm-hmm.
and teach the games, and you jump on Discord and watch their channel, and they'll go through the rules, and then you tell them how you want to move your pieces on your turn. And so, fingers crossed, that's going to be pretty solid. And then we also have, we've got Evan, who's one of our newer employees.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess he's been here a year now. Time flies.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, he's an expert painter, does our paint night on Twitch, and he's going to spend all of Halloween. We've got some ogre zombie kits that WizKids sent us.
Cool.
That come with all of the paints that you need to paint them.
Huh.
And so he's going to be on Twitch teaching, if you've got that kit, how to paint the ogre zombie.
We may have to try this out, James.
Right? Yeah. I'm
Sorry, I'm
like I
talking
said,
to the cameraman here.
right? Fingers crossed here that it's going to be, I don't know, just a good break for everybody in a way to get that same, not only that reconnection between the gaming community and high school students, but also give them that same opportunity to sit down on a webcam and be like, hey guys, this is Betrayal House on the Hill, my favorite Halloween game, and here's the rules. It's a really bad example because Betrayal's got some really loose rules.
It's a really horrible game. It's one of my, I say that, and I also say it's one of my very favorite games. Like, I love that game,
Yeah.
but it is really horrible.
Yeah. Yep, right there with you.
The first time I played that, I was like a 10-year-old little girl, and I turned into an axe murderer and slaughtered my children with an axe.